Before I call the Attorney-General, I'd acknowledge in the gallery Mr Rod Bunton and the Honourable Ms Adamson's granddaughter Sophie. Welcome. Call the Attorney-General.
Thank you, Mr President. With the leave of the Council, I move that the Legislative Council express its deep regret at the recent death of the Honourable Jennifer Lillian Cashmore AM, former Minister of the Crown and Member of the House of Assembly, and places on its record its appreciation of her distinguished public service and, as a mark of respect to her memory, the sitting of the Council be suspended until the ringing of the bells. Thank you, sir. I rise today on behalf of the Government to commemorate the remarkable life and work of the Honourable Jennifer Cashmore AM, to mark our respect and contribution to her legacy, and to offer our sincere condolences to her many friends and her family. Sir, Jennifer Cashmore was born in 1937 to parents Arthur and Myrtle as the fifth child of six. After a brief career in journalism and advertising, and after welcoming three children with Mr Ian Adamson, Francis, Christine and Stuart, Ms Cashmore was elected as a member for Coles, just the third ever woman elected as a member of this Parliament. She went on to become the second woman appointed to State Cabinet and the very first female to be appointed Minister for Health. Her sharp intellect and strategy on matters such as the viability of the State Bank prior to its collapse and her campaign against the development of Wilpena Pound are well known, well respected and well traversed. Sir, I think it's a very human trait to look up to the advocacy and achievements of leaders in relation to issues or causes that we hold dear ourselves. Thus, it's the Honourable Miss Jennifer Cashmore's staunch activism for quality palliative care and those who are dying that inspires me, and from which I think will form a significant part of her ongoing legacy in this state. In 1990, as a private member, Ms Cashmore moved to establish a select committee for the law and practice relating to dying and death. Nearly 30 years later, sir, I had the privilege of being part of building on that work with a committee in the last Parliament that was a select committee on end-of-life choices. In establishing her committee, Ms Cashmore sought to have it examine whether there were adequate options for dying with dignity, and referred to the existing lack of emphasis on the needs of dying patients, the death-denying attitudes that existed in the medical profession, and the broad interest at the time in the community in measures at the end of life. Ms Cashmore posed a question at the time, which was likely quite a controversial one: are we such a death-denying society that we cannot listen to the strongly held and well-argued views of people that view that they should have some right of self-determination over the nature of their end? Sir, after the committee reported, the Consent to Medical Treatment and Palliative Care Bill was passed in 1995. It is thought to be the first legislation in the world to include the words palliative care in the title, and the first to provide legislated support for the relief of pain and distress. Ms Cashmore was pivotal in giving rights and a voice to the dying. The groundwork she laid in ensuring that end of life should be dignified paved the way for careful, safeguarded laws in relation to voluntary assisted dying that we have in this place. Indeed, sir, she was given credit for her work in palliative care by many during debates on bills that deal with these matters. It was only fitting that Ms Cashmore's advocacy for palliative care and assisted dying was marked in the eulogy at her funeral last week as one of her greatest political and societal achievements. Jennifer Cashmore AM will be remembered as a giant of South Australian politics. She was described at her funeral as a brilliant speaker and debater, an active local member and a staunch advocate. She was also lovingly remembered as a kind, caring and gentle mother to her three children, whose brilliant work in their respective roles as Governor of South Australia, Supreme Court Judge and Chaplain will continue to build on Ms Cashmore's own legacy. On behalf of this Government, we send our heartfelt condolences to all that knew and loved Ms Jennifer Cashmore across her 86 years and pay respects to her memory. Vale, Jennifer Cashmore.
I call on the Honourable Leader of the Opposition to second the motion.
Thank you, Mr President. It is an honour to rise today and celebrate the life of Jennifer Lillian Cashmore AM, a remarkable woman who dedicated her life to public service and to the community of South Australia. Born on December the 5th, 1937, Jennifer became a trailblazer in state politics, as well as a compassionate advocate for numerous causes long after her political career closed. Her formative education at the Walford Anglican School for Girls is said to have instilled her with discipline, with hard work, and a need to serve the community. Miss Cashmore, the son of a master baker, was once quoted of saying of her upbringing, "We were brought up to plan for a job, do the job, and follow up afterwards." Jennifer certainly lived by that ethos of hard work and completionism. Miss Cashmore was a pioneering force in the South Australian House of Assembly from 1977 to 1993, representing the eastern suburb seats of Coles, now largely the electoral district of Moriata. She was only the third woman to be elected to the South Australian House of Assembly, helping to pave the way for future generations of women in politics. As Minister for Health and Minister for Tourism during the Tonkin government from 1979 to 1982, she became the first woman in Cabinet since Joyce Steele OBE. It was an opportunity to showcase her ability to lead with both wisdom and empathy, which Ms Cashmore seized with both hands. Her tenure of 16 years was marked by an unwavering commitment to her constituents in the former seat of Coles, as well as by her dedication to the principles of the Liberal Party. There was a persuasive sexist vitriol which so commonly emanated from our state parliament in the early years of her political career, and one which she never, at least never publicly, batted an eyelash at. She did not swear, she did not get drunk, she did not engage in antics. One of her most remembered qualities was her concrete resolve to take a battle face on and present her case, no matter how unpopular, if she believed it was important. This often gave public comparisons to the UK's Iron Lady, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. It was written in the Advertiser once that she could outthink and outdebate most of her parliamentary colleagues. I went into politics because I was concerned about the world my children would grow up in, Miss Cashmore once said, and I think we all absolutely understand this drive and desire. Miss Cashmore had hope for the future in South Australia that was forward-thinking, clever and ingenious, in her own words. I agree with her notion that, and I quote, "There is no wealth without productivity, and that comes from two sources and two sources only, the land and our intellect." Ms Cashmore believed that government was becoming too centralised at the expense of the ordinary citizens losing their power of autonomy and opportunity. As I noted earlier, Mr President, Jennifer was firm in her liberal values and views. No matter if she disagreed with details, she absolutely believed that individuals, families and businesses have a greater role to play in the success of our state, and that decentralised power must be handed back to the people. Her forward-thinking nature was evident when she raised critical questions about the financial viability of the State Bank before its collapse, the destruction caused by feral animals, and the impediments to accessing palliative care. In 1992, Jennifer demonstrated her fearless spirit by contesting the leadership of our party, a testament to her unwavering belief of her vision for the future. And though she was not successful, her courage and determination inspired many, particularly young women with leadership aspirations, and she will be remembered as a mentor to many who followed, including in the current parliamentary team. She served on the Ministerial Advisory Board on Ageing, chaired the South Australian Association for Hospice and Palliative Care, and was patron of the Alzheimer Association SA. She was appointed to the inaugural board of the Charitable and Social Welfare Fund, the National Childcare Accreditation Council, and served on the first board of the Environmental Protection Authority in 1995. Her continued service to South Australia was recognised nationally, when Miss Cashmore was honoured as a member of the Order of Australia in 1998. This prestigious accolade was a testament to her contribution to the community, particularly in the realms of palliative care, women's issues and economic development, alongside her significant work within the South Australian Parliament. Recently, Jennifer attended the Playfords Trust 40th anniversary celebrations, She had been involved in the Trust for many years, especially in its support for young South Australians pursuing education and research in STEM fields. She lived an active public life until the last, and several of our Legislative Council colleagues saw and acknowledged Ms Cashmore at a rally on the steps of Parliament House as recently as June to show her opposition to the proposed cuts and restructure of the South Australian Museum. Her presence was met with loud applause for the near 1,000 South Australians in attendance, marking her return to Parliament House for the first time in over a decade. It would be remiss of me not to acknowledge another crucial role of Miss Cashmore's life, that of a devoted mother. Jennifer raised 3 remarkably high-achieving children. Her Excellency, the Honourable Frances Adamson, our current Governor of South Australia, Christine Adamson, a Judge of the Supreme Court of New South Wales, and Stuart Adamson, an Anglican chaplain. Her legacy lives on through them, reflecting her values of service to community, justice, and belief in values. To her children, her grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, I offer sincere condolences, but I know they surely take pride in Jennifer and the life she lived. On June the 10th, 2024, at the age of 86, Jennifer Lillian Cashmore left us, leaving behind a legacy of compassion, of strength, and trailblazing achievements. As a Member of Parliament, she knew both victory and defeat. As a student of classic liberalism, she understood the benefit of being fiscally prudent and socially forward. Today, we honour her memory, celebrating a life well lived and a woman who made an indelible mark on our state. Rest in peace, Jennifer Lillian Cashmore. Your contributions will forever be remembered and your spirit will continue to inspire us all. Vale Jennifer Lillian Cashmore AM.
Minister for Primary Industries and Regional Development.
Thank you, Mr President. I rise to add to the tributes honouring the Honourable Jennifer Cashmore AM and to offer my sincere condolences to her family and friends, including her children, our Governor, Her Excellency the Honourable Frances Adamson AC, as well as New South Wales Supreme Court Justice Christine Adamson and Reverend Stuart Adamson. Ms Cashmore was an inspiration for many women on both sides of politics, being only the 3rd woman elected to the House of Assembly in 1977. As others have noted, she was a Liberal Party MP from 1977 to 1993 and served as Minister for Health and Minister for Tourism in the Tonkin government from 1979 to 1982. For 12 of her almost 17 years in Parliament, she was the only woman representing her party in the House of Assembly. During those 17 years, she made several courageous moves for the betterment of our state, including threatening to stand in front of bulldozers to oppose development at Wilpena Pound and indicating her intention to cross the floor in 1988 to support a ban on tobacco advertising. Ms Cashmore advocated passionately for many causes, but particularly for quality palliative care. And after leaving Parliament, Ms Cashmore was chair of the Palliative Care SA, or PCSA, board from 1993 to 1996 and was a life member of PCSA. Her strong advocacy on this issue contributed to the passing of the Consent to Medical Treatment and Palliative Care Bill on the 6th of April 1995. In the last couple of years of Ms Cashmore's time in Parliament, I began working in the political sphere. I remember her as determined and articulate. While obviously our party political views were very different, she was nevertheless a role model for women in politics and was instrumental in breaking down barriers to women entering Parliament. I had the pleasure of speaking with her at an event at Government House, I think it was for International Women's Day, and she continued to command respect and obviously command affection. Once again, I offer my sincere condolences to Her Excellency our Governor and to family members as we remember a life well lived in the service of others and of our state. May she rest in peace. Vale Jennifer Cashmore.
Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr President. I rise today with great sadness to join other honourable members to speak on the condolence motion for the Honourable Jennifer Cashmore AM. I wish to convey my deepest condolences to Her Excellency, the Governor of South Australia, family members, friends and all those who knew and loved Jennifer. I would like to take this opportunity today to pay tribute to the Honourable Jennifer Cashmore who was a trailblazer of our state and our country. Throughout her distinguished career, she had made an incredible impact in public policies that shaped the social and economic development of our state. Some honourable members may recall during our debate here in the chamber about the motion on the South Australian Museum, where I mentioned that the Honourable Jennifer Cashmore attended the rally on the steps of Parliament House to oppose the funding cuts and the proposed restructure of the South Australian Museum. When the Honourable John Gardner acknowledged her presence at the rally during his speech, Jennifer's attendance was applauded loudly by nearly 1,000 South Australians at the rally, welcoming her back to Parliament House for the first time in more than a decade. I remember that day vividly. The Honourable John Gardner knew I was attending the museum rally and rang me in the morning to inform me that Jennifer would be at the rally in her wheelchair. John asked whether I would be happy to accompany Jennifer during the duration of the rally. I said, of course, it would be my pleasure. On the day, I approached Jennifer and said hello and reintroduced myself. She said to me with her gorgeous signature smile, "Yes, Jing, I know who you are. We have met. I believe this is the 3rd time we have met. Great to see you again." I was astounded and amazed by how good her memories were. It was incredibly inspiring to see her strong stand for the South Australian Museum, as it was something so important to her and so close to her heart. It was a coolish day that morning. I noticed that she was getting a bit cold, so my husband Eddie and I, along with the Honourable Di Laylord, formed a human fortress to shield the cold winds for her. While Jennifer looked frail, but in good spirits that morning, I never thought that our meeting at the rally was the last time we would meet. We were all saddened by the news of the passing of Jennifer on the 10th of June 2024. It was a terribly sad day for the Liberal Party of South Australia. Not long after the announcement came through about the passing of former Premier Steele Hall, we learned another sad news about Jennifer's passing through a phone message before the media had published the news. I didn't actually believe we lost 2 remarkable Liberal Party giants on the same day. So I went onto the Governor's Facebook page just to be 100% sure. When I read the beautiful tribute by Her Excellency on the Governor's page about her beloved mother, it confirmed Jennifer's sad departure from this world. I became quite emotional when I heard the news, as I reflected on my own personal loss of my beautiful mama some years ago. Losing someone as significant as a mother was a time of deep sorrow for me. No one in the world can replace the unique bond and love of a mother. My thoughts and prayers to family members who are mourning currently for the deep loss of their beloved mother. In a statement published on social media, on the Governor's Facebook page, and I quote, "In paying tribute to her late mother, the Governor said she was a remarkable woman and a courageous trailblazer in many areas, including environmental protection and in drawing attention to the failure of State Bank of South Australia. The Honourable Jennifer Cashmore was a lifelong campaigner for women's equality. Through her compassion and dedication to public service, she instilled in her 3 children a strong sense of service and community commitment. Jennifer Cashmore is survived by her 3 children, the Honourable Francis Adamson, AC, Governor of South Australia, Justice Christine Adamson, Judge of Appeal of the New South Wales Supreme Court, and Reverend Stuart Adamson, Associate Dean of the Chaplaincy and Spiritual Care of Modern College in Sydney. The incredible accomplishments and leadership of her 3 children demonstrate the profound influence and impact that she had in their lives and chosen careers. Jennifer was well loved and respected, and she demonstrated that she was a strong and capable political leader and community advocate, and at the same time, a loving and caring mother that provided the best opportunities for her children. Honourable Jennifer Cashmore was born in 1937, educated in Adelaide and elected as member for Coles, now Morialta, in 1977. She became the third woman to be elected in the House of Assembly in South Australian history. She served her community as a local MP for 16 years until her retirement in 1993. During her time in Parliament, Jennifer became the second female member to sit around the cabinet table from 1979 to 1982. She served as Minister for Health and Minister for Tourism during the Tonkin Liberal government. Between 1982 and 1989, she held several shadow portfolios, including environment and planning, the arts, and the economy. Jennifer Cashmore was a pioneer of women's progress in public life in South Australia. She broke through barriers and took active steps to support those who follow her. In 1991, Jennifer published a book called A Chance in Life. The title of the book was inspired by a quote from Robert Menzies in 1972, which he said, "The state owes every responsible citizen not only a chance in life, but a self-respecting life." I want to take this opportunity to use two examples that Jennifer described in her book, A Chance in Life, in regards to women's voices. She spoke about speaking simply, clearly, and be polite. She also spoke about the lesson of trying to see the other person's point of view. And I quote, "Remember that in public life, the other person is nearly always a man. We must always remember that men are not the enemy. They are our fathers, our brothers, our lovers, our husbands, our friends, and our colleagues, and all our customers or voters. Whatever the case may be, if we put ourselves in the position of those men who are close to us to see things through their eyes, very often we will take a different approach." She went on to provide two examples, and I thought honourable members may enjoy knowing these stories that characterise the clarity of mind, intellect and strength of Jennifer as a political leader. In her words, and I quote, "I recall in a vigorous party room discussion on childcare policy, there was a reluctance to adopt the position which I thought was the correct one. Totally frustrated with my colleagues' inability to see the need for flexible, accessible childcare, I just burst out. Don't you realise that if we simply provide childcare but fail to reorganise society so the interests of children are paramount, a whole generation of people, myself included, may never have grandchildren, will never have the pleasure of being grandparents because our daughters and daughters-in-law will simply find it too hard to have both a career and a family. We will end up the losers." To my amazement, one of my toughest-minded colleagues, whom I would have expected to be the last person to advocate increased childcare, said, "Jennifer's right. I don't think I'm ever going to be a grandfather. My daughter's almost past childbearing age, and she's absolutely committed to her career. But this personal perspective gave him a total different insights from his political perspective." Another story I'd like to share, which was also quoted in the book. Recently, I was asked to give a talk to 11-year-old schoolboys on the achievements of South Australian women over the last 150-odd years. Instinct told me that the boys really wouldn't be interested. Somehow I had to make it interesting. I asked which of them had sisters and asked them to envisage the time before the Married Women's Property Act came into being. How would they have felt had their parents left property on their sisters, or if their sister, upon marrying, no longer owned that property because the law said it belonged to her husband? They didn't like the thought of that at all. Then I asked how they would feel if I told half of them they had to vote. They could make the laws, they could earn money, and they could decide how the country would be run. The other half would be made to stay at home and do the dishes. They would not have the right to education, to earn an income, or to own property. They were outraged at the prospect that anyone could do that to them. But that, when I explained this, it had been done to women for centuries, it gave them new understanding. That just proves the characters of who Jennifer was. Jennifer also led reform work in the South Australia palliative care laws, which many honourable members have mentioned already, end-of-life law reforms of the era in South Australia, which was world-leading and directly attributed to Jennifer's Cashmore's work. In her book, A Chance in Life, she actually devoted a whole chapter about death and dying. And I think this is, for someone from a multicultural background, I think some of the things that she thought about was really significant. I would actually like to quote that, Mr. President. First, we should understand that the essential issues that need to be resolved are not medical, but ethical. We need to find ways of expressing our human and spiritual values in the decisions that make about medical treatment of the dying. Doctors and nurses should not be left to make these decisions on their own. The community, through Parliament, must establish a legal framework and provide the resources so that community values the law and clinical practice are in tune. The needs and values of patients and their families should be paramount. Their wishes need to be understood and respected as far as humanly possible. We must understand that while we recognise that it's important for the living, it is equally important for the dying. This is particularly so in Australia, where many people come from cultures different background from those of the health professionals who care for them at the end of their lives. It shows a lot of empathy and sympathy of Jennifer in her work. She's continued to do great philanthropic work, and for a time in Parliament and also in public service. She was, as many honourable members already mentioned, awarded a Member of the Order of Australia during the Governor-General's Australia Day Awards in 1998. Jennifer was a trailblazer and an inspiring role model for me, and I'm sure for so many. Some people may have wished to know what she thought her role as a politician was, and to honour her legacy and memories, I would like to quote her own words. She said this: "As a Member of Parliament, I believe it is my responsibility to try, as often as possible, to say what other people are thinking when perhaps not expressing, so that those I represent feel they have a voice. Another obligation, more difficult by far to fulfill, is actually to make people think. We need to see ourselves not only as individuals, but as a very important part of society. When we do that, we are forced to think about the relationship between thought and action, action and reaction. We're forced to think not just about our own lives, but about the lives of others we depend on and who depend on us, our families, our employers, our colleagues, our country. In other words, we are forced to think politically. The more people can think politically, the more power they have to influence their future in ways of their own choosing. These are the words of wisdoms and high standards that I believe our all honourable members are aspired to do and are doing. Jennifer Cashmore will remain in our hearts and minds as a remarkable human being, a trailblazer in South Australian politics, and a dignified woman with a strong voice that spoke clearly, politely, someone who with strong conviction to get things done. We will miss her. We thank you sincerely to Honourable Jennifer Cashmore for your incredible contributions to South Australia and to our country.
The Honourable Dennis Hood.
Thank you, sir. One of the difficulties in speaking down the list on one of these motions, of course, is much of what I've said has been conversed by my colleagues, and so for that reason, sir, my contribution will be fairly concise but heartfelt nonetheless. And for that reason, sir, I join my colleagues in support of this condolence motion for the passing of Jennifer Cashmore AM. who served as a Liberal Party member in the eastern suburbs seat of Coles, now the seat of Morialta, from 1977, I should say, to 1993. Jennifer was the third woman in history to be elected to the other place, sir, as other members have touched on, and was the second to be appointed to Cabinet in 1979, where she served as the Minister for Health and the Minister for Tourism in the Tonkin government. A notable part of Jennifer's legacy, of course, was the fact that she warned of the state bank collapse and was the first member to raise concerns in Parliament pertaining to the lending practices and financial viability of the institution. Reflecting on it in 1992, Jennifer told the Advertiser, and I quote, "In April 1989, I made a major speech highlighting the vulnerability of the government guarantee and the importance of the Treasurer in making sure that normal banking requirements were complied with. The warning signals were sounded loudly and clearly in Parliament, and yet those concerns were ignored." End of quote, sir. Perhaps if Jennifer's apprehensions were adhered to, sir, South Australia could have avoided decades of grave economic challenges. Among Jennifer's other achievements, of course, sir, was, as been highlighted by my colleagues as well, was the key role she fulfilled in developing the Consent to Medical Treatment and Palliative Care Act, and then dedicating much of her life after Parliament to supporting the worthy cause of palliative care in our state. Countless South Australians have certainly been beneficiaries of her pioneering work in this area, and I applaud her for it. In addition to these efforts, sir, Jennifer was the responsible minister who ushered in critical legislation for the establishment of the Olympic Dam mine. She was also commended for her courage in crossing the floor to support the Labor government's tobacco advertising ban in 1988. It was then a decade later that Jennifer received the esteemed Order of Australia. I'm aware that as recently as earlier this year, sir, Jennifer attended a rally on the steps of Parliament, as my colleagues have outlined, to oppose the state government's restructuring of the South Australian Museum. Her passion and resolve to make a difference for the betterment of our state was clearly always a priority to her and continued right to her very last days. I take this opportunity, sir, to convey my most sincere condolences to Jennifer's family, particularly to her children, the Honourable Francis Adamson, AC Governor of South Australia, sir, the Judge of the New South Wales Supreme Court, the Honourable Justice Christine Addison, and the Reverend Stuart Adamson, Associate Dean in Chaplaincy and Spiritual Care at Sydney's Morling College. She'll be dearly missed, and I wish her family my most sincere condolences.
Mr. Wortley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to express my heartfelt condolences to the family of the Honourable Jennifer Lillian Cashmore AM, the former Minister of the House of the Assembly and the Minister of the Crown. As a person who has spent his life in politics and in the Labor movement, both industrially and politically, it was pretty hard not to know of the exploits of Jennifer Cashmore. She supported, and I can only imagine how challenging it was to be the only woman in the Liberal Party during those times. She supported many causes. She actually, in 1989, she drew the attention to the Parliament and the public in general of the very precarious financial situation of the State Bank. And only if people would have listened to then, we may have been able to avoid the catastrophe which was to follow. Ms Cashmore, Jennifer, supported many issues which I felt very strongly about. She supported the Tobacco Products Amendment Bill, and she also had great advocacy for the palliative care. She also, I can remember when she made the comment that she would stand in front of bulldozers to stop the development up at Flinders Ranges. So you could only help someone on the left side of politics to have nothing but admiration for the member for Coles. Now, I got to know Jennifer personally in around about 1994, after she left politics. Jennifer was appointed to the Federation of the Centenary Federation with my partner Dana at the same time. This involved doing a lot of travelling around the country, talking to various state governments and people in the community about what projects could be taken on and delivered on the 100 years of Federation. So I got to know Jennifer quite often during those days. And I recall having dinner at her place with her husband, Stuart Coburn, at the time. And you could tell then that Jennifer, even after politics, was living a very fulfilled and very happy and interesting life. So it is with that short contribution, I'd like to just pay my condolences to the family. She was and to the family of Jennifer, and give my greatest respects and veil Jennifer Cashmore.
Honourable members, I extend my condolences to the family and friends of the Honourable Jennifer Cashmore. I ask honourable members to stand in their places and carry the motion in silence. Thank you, members, honourable members. The sitting is suspended until the ringing of the bells.